I am here with Caris. For those of you that are joining for the first time, Caris is a really motivational, a really kind of inspiring example of someone that's turned their tinnitus and the struggles they have with tinnitus into a real positive in their life. For those of you that saw Caris's success story a couple of months ago, you'll remember how inspiring that story was. And Caris mentioned actually one of the things that she found so helpful in her journey was cooking. So, Caris, I'll let you introduce yourself in a second, but tonight we're going to be talking about Caris's journey with tinnitus, and we're going to be talking about how Caris has used her tinnitus and turned it into a positive in her life, and kind of the journey that she's been along. I know there's been some ups and downs, so we'll dig into some of those. Um, but stick around until the end for two reasons. Number one, you guys are going to get an opportunity to ask your questions to Caris directly. So if you have any questions for Caris, pop them in the Q&A and I'll get round to them. Last time we had a lot of questions for Caris, so if you do have questions, get them in early. It'll be first come, first served. I don't want you to miss out. We want to get through as many as possible. Welcome to those of you that are joining. Nice to see a few familiar faces and a few new faces as well. So thank you for those of you that have just joined. The final reason why you should stick around until the end is because we have another prize draw this evening. So one of you is going to win unlimited access to Otto forever. So you'll have unlimited access to Otto, and I'm going to announce that right at the end. Okay, Caris, say hello to everyone. Tell everyone a bit about yourself, where you're from, what you're currently doing, and a bit about your journey with tinnitus.
Well, I don't really know where to start, but I'm Caris Lount and I've had tinnitus my whole life. Um, it's been a journey of ups and downs for sure, but it really started to affect me in university in particular. So I'm in my final year of university now, and at the start of my journey, when I was dealing really negatively with it, it impacted me in ways where I didn't think it ever would. So throughout my whole life, I've had tinnitus and it never really impacted me a huge amount. But when I got to uni, I was pushing myself with all these goals and saying to myself, oh, you're going to make loads of new friends. And then it impacted me socially, mentally, physically. And I didn't know what to do. But I'm now at the point where I'm happy living with tinnitus, and I never ever thought that was possible. And if you said to me this time last year that you will be living happily, I would not have believed you. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, and I'm quite excited to tell you all about it.
Great. I love that. I love the really positive start. I'm sure there's many people here that will be thinking, how can you live a life with tinnitus? How can you live a good life with tinnitus? It's just, I'm never going to have that life back. So it's so nice to hear that, that really positive start, that really inspiring message. So Caris, tell us a bit, how did you get tinnitus? Do you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, I kind of put it down to it being hereditary because my dad actually has tinnitus, but he didn't know about it until I started complaining myself. So I started saying to him, yeah, my tinnitus is so bad. Like, I didn't realize it would affect me this much. He's like, wait, is that when you hear a ringing in your ear? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And all this time he's been sleeping with the radio on. He's a lorry driver and he always plays the radio. And I always like listen to what he's listening to. I'm like, Dad, how are you listening to that? He's like, I don't know, I just like the sound because it's that constant static, that white noise. And that's where I thought, okay, it's definitely been passed down in the family here. But it's strange because I've never really met anyone like me, my age, and that's had it their whole life. I just thought it was something that you had to have a cause for, but I now know that it's okay to not really know a huge amount about why you have it. And that's took a big weight off my shoulders because I always thought I was an anomaly. Sorry, I can't say that word, but I always thought I was left out in the tinnitus community. But I don't know, it's quite amazing to know that my dad had it because he'd never mentioned it before. You know, it can affect people in different ways. And for me, it really impacts me. Well, it used to. And I'm at a position where I'm habituated now. And that's what my dad's been like his whole life, you know? And that's just what it's like for some people.
Yeah, that definitely resonates, and I'm sure will resonate with a lot of people here. It's something that you don't realize other people have, and it's something that especially if you're in the early days, you think, oh God, this is no one. I've never heard anyone talk about this before. I never hear it on the news, or never hear about it in TV or films or anything. And it is very isolating, isn't it? It makes you feel alone. And
Exactly. Yeah.
so
It's because it's invisible, isn't it? You have no idea. And someone as close to me as my dad who has tinnitus, and I didn't even know myself. It's
mm,
crazy. But as soon as I started talking about it, that's how I knew. And that's why talking about it and having these webinars is so important.
yeah, yeah. So tell me about that journey, Caris. So you went to university, and it sounded like that was when you started struggling with it. Tell us a bit more about the things that you were struggling with. What was difficult?
Yeah, like I said, like it's the pressure of university for one. It's the stress, and it's like, okay, I'm going to university. I need to have like everything together. I need to get myself sorted out, and I need to start studying. And then I realized, okay, this ringing's actually really loud. And I just came out of lockdown at the time. It went from lockdown and then it went to first year. So I'd kind of been in tune with my body, and I've been walking outside, being on my own for a while. And all I could really grasp from being on my own is that I have this really loud ringing, and it's actually very, very annoying.
Mm,
So when I started doing things at university, like studying and socializing, I realized that this isn't fair. Like, why me? Why am I the person that's dealing with this? And I would communicate with people. I would say, do you guys have this ringing? That I would ask people, and they're like, no. But I knew that it wasn't normal because in secondary school, I basically like had sleepovers with my friends, and at night time we would ask each other silly questions, and I'd be like, can you hear that ringing in this silence? Like when you're about to go sleep, they'd be like, no, what are you on about? Like, what's going on? So yeah, it really did affect me in uni. And the biggest way I would say is socially, because that's the one thing that was most important to me. And it stressed me out. Like I really wanted to make some new friends and go out clubbing without having this pressure of, oh, is my tinnitus going to get worse the next day? And there is a
mm,
huge clubbing culture in university, and I don't want to make myself miss out because of that.
mm,
So it got really difficult, and I got to the point where I was isolating myself so much because I couldn't face the day with this ringing. And like you guys will all know, like I'm not talking to people who don't know about what it can make you feel like. It's you know how hard it is, and it's hard to explain to people who don't have it with how
mm,
much it's affecting you because it's only a noise. It's
mm,
it's only a noise, but this noise is you can't escape it, you can't turn it off. So it really did put me down quite a lot.
mm. Yeah, and that really does resonate, and I'm sure will resonate with many people here. There's a theme with tinnitus, especially in the early days, and that is that it makes you, whatever stage of life you're at, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, it makes you feel like it feels like it's taking your life away. It feels like it's stopping you from doing the things you want to do. For you, it was enjoying the university experience, making friends, going out. For people that at different stages of their life, it's stopping them from doing the things they want to do. And that's really something that I felt for me, and it's I know my co-founder George felt as well, and for many of the people that we speak to feel that way as well. So you're at university, you're struggling with this, and it's making you feel isolated. It's making you feel alone. What did you do next?
Oh, I mean, it was a very long process of feeling sad, shut down, but I was mainly like upset and feeling so negative because I was blaming everything going wrong in my
Mm,
university journey on my tinnitus. So if I was like falling behind about, oh, it's because of my tinnitus, I can't study well because I can hear this constant ringing and other people, they can't hear it. So I'm the one that's got the short straw in life here. And I didn't know what to do for a solid year. And I kind of pushed tinnitus to the side in a way where I thought it was just my mental health that was wrong.
mm,
Because I think the thing that's really overlooked is that tinnitus does impact your mental health a huge amount. Like it's not the ringing itself that's hurting you or making you like upset. It's literally the mental health that comes off that. So I didn't know what to do. And I basically was looking for like helplines or like therapists. And obviously, like some therapists, they're so expensive and they don't even know much about tinnitus. So at that point, I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I'll just call a helpline and see what they can do. And I spoke to them and they said, well, you need to go out for walks. You need to just like be in silence and relax. And the one thing that I didn't mention was my tinnitus. And
mhm,
obviously, at that point, my mental health was stemming from my tinnitus, and what they were saying was probably just going to make it worse anyway.
mm,
But I soon came to the conclusion that my tinnitus was something that was really bothering me because at one point of isolating myself like a few weeks, not really going out the house, I was like, okay, you know what, I'm going to go out, I'm going to go clubbing with my friends this time. And I went out, came back, and then for the next 2 weeks, all I could hear was this constant ringing. And what do I do? It's so loud, it's so annoying. And then I realized, okay, I need to do something about this ringing. Like, what am I going to do? It's putting me down, it's making me isolated, and I can't get on with anything in my life. And I'm just blaming everything on my tinnitus at this point.
Yeah.
And the first thing that really got me out of this slump was cooking. And it's so simple. Something so simple really helped me so much. Like I can't explain, but I'm gonna try. So
Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
would wake up in the morning. I would wake up in the morning and hear my tinnitus really loud. It would make me want to go sleep. But if I like started meal prepping the night before, it would make me want to get up and go and eat this food in the morning. And it became a routine. So I was basically cooking food, thinking about what nutrients to put in there and like different like vegetables and whatnot, making it really nice, looking at recipes. And I realized it's starting to make a routine and distract me from my tinnitus. And that just got me so much further out of the slump that I was in. Like I was so deep in this hole of tinnitus sadness, and just cooking just brought me back up. It made me focus on my mental health.
Mm,
And because I was thinking of what I was eating, this was like indirectly helping my mental health, which was then impacting my tinnitus. So I wasn't as stressed all the time. I was sleeping better, and I'd wake up in the morning and I think, oh, I'm really excited to get on with the day because like I'm going to do some cooking and I'm actually going to feel good. And you know, like I guess it probably is like I'm not an expert or anything. This is just like my experience with tinnitus, but brain function like has a massive impact on like your mental health anyway, let
mm,
alone tinnitus. And that's your brain is causing your tinnitus like noise. So if I'm eating better, then how like it's obviously doing something for my brain, you know?
mm. I love that there's something that you realized you had a passion for, and you used the situation that you were in, which was clearly a really tough situation, and you thought, okay, I'm going to use this situation as motivation to make a change and do something different. What was the trigger for you, do you think? What was the point where you thought, okay, right, I've had enough of this. I'm going to find something. Did you just try cooking one day, and you realized you loved it? What was obviously you cooked before, but what was it that kind of triggered the change?
I could honestly talk about this for ages actually, because the reason why I was in this slump was because I was eating so badly as well in the first place. I wasn't exercising, and exercising like gives you all these endorphins, it makes you feel good. And when I was in this slump with my tinnitus, all I was eating was salty foods, takeaways. You know, as a student, you're just gonna have like
Mm,
pasta every single night. That obviously wasn't doing me much good. And if I felt awful about myself, I was gonna feel awful mentally. So I basically was like, okay, like this is the one thing I'm going to change first. Like if I'm really going to like change my mindset, and you know, like changing your mindset is the first step to actually getting on the right path with tinnitus. And I was on such a rocky path. It just made me think this is so simple. Let me just try it. And that's just the first step that I took to get me on that right track.
mm. Right, yeah, okay. What advice would you give to the people here that are in the same position that you were when you were just at your lowest moment? What would you say to those people, being how you are now? What would you say to those people?
I would say if you were like me and your tinnitus was really stopping you from doing things, so you're just staying in bed all day and just feeling miserable about yourself, well, you're probably on your phone, like scrolling through social media. That's what I was doing all the time. Like, I didn't want to get out of bed because of this noise. I would say go off social media, stop like looking at negative comments on forums that aren't monitored, and go onto YouTube and just have a look at some nice, relaxing sounds. And better still, you can have a look at some reels, or on TikTok, you might find some nice hobbies that you could just start engaging in, or just talking to a more positive community, for example. Because once you find something you're really interested in, it can just like give you that motivation to keep going and turn your
Mm,
mindset into a much more positive one.
So it's kind of finding the motivation from within yourself to do something different. Yeah. Right. So you've realized that you've found that this thing's really helping, this cooking, the meal prep, working out what you're eating. cooking more is really helping with your tinnitus. It's helping to distract you. It's helping you to feel better, both physically and mentally. Tell us a bit more about what you did with this and how you kind of changed this. You kind of took this to the next level with your social media and things. Tell us about what happened next.
Yeah, so it all started like a year and a bit ago, I'd say. So I started posting on social media just as a hobby, my foods, like different foods I was making for university. So I was cooking pasta, like pasta, nice meals, not just plain pasta this time, pasta, like Mediterranean vegetables, all sorts. And I was doing like little reels with that, posting them on Instagram, and people be like, "Oh, this is really nice to see. Like, it's nice to see that the uni students actually looking after their like health because you just don't do it." But I was really enjoying it. I loved being on social media and posting all these things. And then I was like, right, it's all stemmed from me having tinnitus. Like cooking has really took me away from this negativity with tinnitus. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna post something about tinnitus on TikTok and see if there's anyone else out there like me, like that felt exactly how I did. And I posted it and it got like 14 million views within like a week. And that's completely insane, but it made me realize there's so many people out there. And when that happened, I completely accepted really suddenly, okay, I'm not the only person with tinnitus, and there are many people that feel exactly the same as me. For example, the one thing that I always used to think to myself was, my tinnitus is the worst ever. Like, no one's tinnitus can top mine. Mine is the loudest. And then I would look in the comments on this video of me talking about tinnitus, and there'll be people talking about tinnitus in exactly the same way I'd be thinking. So it made me realize it's not just me. And I want to post more videos about tinnitus just to see exactly who else is out there and who else I can connect with. So I kept doing that. And yeah, it's honestly, it's been a crazy journey, but that's how I found Otto. So I'm very grateful.
So you started posting and you found that actually there was so many other people out there struggling like you were, but also found kind of relief in that, and found help in that, and that shared experience of going through something difficult together was not only beneficial for you, but beneficial for the other people that were seeing your content as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's nice because I always thought I was too young to have tinnitus, for example, and that I don't really know a cause, like a full-on cause. Like I guess it's hereditary, but there are so many people with such a similar experience. And because it's not spoke about much in real life, it's very easy to think that you are alone in this journey with tinnitus when you're actually not. You're really not alone. And all it takes is talking to people who have tinnitus
Mm,
positively, not negatively, not putting each other down, like giving useful tips to really lift you back up.
okay, okay. But so you didn't stop there, did you? Tell us about the Tinnitus Cookbook.
Oh yeah, so right, this is my book. I'm gonna do a shameless plug. This is my book. Ooh, it's called the Tinnitus Cookbook, and I basically put loads of different recipes in there that I really enjoyed making when I was in my worst days with tinnitus. Like it really did help. And then, like, at the start of my journey, I was Googling things where I was like, what foods can help with tinnitus? Are there any nutrients or anything out there that can stop my tinnitus? And obviously, there's very little research for anything to do with that. But these are just things that I enjoyed cooking, and things that like are low in salt, because salt can increase blood pressure. Again, I'm not an expert, but high blood pressure, like stress causing high blood pressure, could make your tinnitus worse. So, I just put these little recipes in that book, and I just basically showed exactly what you can do as a hobby. Like, it doesn't have to be cooking. Like, some of you might not even like cooking at all, and nothing will change that. That's fine. You can do anything that you're passionate about just to get yourself back up on your feet. And, this mindset will motivate you to find more help and help you feel so much better.
That's a really, really positive message. If people are interested in following you on social media or want to read your book, how can they find you, Caris?
My social medias are the Tinnitus Cookbook, and then my book's also called the Tinnitus Cookbook. But it's not just the cookbook. It has lots of like advice from myself, like not expert advice, just my experience. And there's some like testimonials in there of other people. Like it's been a joint effort, really. It's been good.
Brilliant. Okay, so final question for me. How are you now? You mentioned earlier you'd habituated. Tell us about that process and how your tinnitus impacts you now.
Well, the process was I wouldn't say it was long because it only took me less than a year when I was on that journey anyway. Obviously, I've had tinnitus my whole life, but at the start of the year is when I found out about you guys. So I'm doing so much better now. And if it wasn't for like doing all these things on social media, I would never have found you guys. And it is just amazing. So I basically got reached out to by, I'm going to be very transparent, got reached out to by someone from Otto. And they were like, oh, I really like what you're doing with your social media. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm being noticed. And then they said, oh, do you want to like try out our app? Like it'd be really, really nice for you to like post about the app and like see if you enjoy it, like your actual opinion. So I did. I thought it was a scam at first. You know, you have to be very careful. I went onto the App Store and downloaded it, opened it up, and I was instantly just relieved. And I felt amazing. Like it was tailored towards you, and it just made me happy to know that there's people out there actually doing something about tinnitus. Like they're not scammers, and it's free and accessible, and that's all I wanted. So I went through the app and I would sit in my bed, and obviously I would still have my bad days at this point. But I'd sit in my bed, open it up, very, very low effort, and then I would just sit there and listen. And this listening, and I learned so much from it. It was so simple, and I didn't have to do much. I just sat there and did some breathing exercises. And I was like, yeah, this is good. This is really good. So then I took like a step further and I did the one-to-one coaching, which completely changed the game. It's just like a step up from the app, really. Like I loved every second of it. And you know, like I'm habituated now, but I'd still love to talk to Anna. Like it was that fun, it was that lovely, and I felt so comfortable with it.
Brilliant. So tell us just about how your tinnitus impacts your life at the moment. I mean, does it impact your life? Do you notice it? Does it bother you at all? What's the volume like? Tell us a bit more about that.
The volume hasn't changed in any way. It's still extremely loud. And honestly, I say extremely loud, I say that, and it sounds not great to hear. But does it bother me anymore? No. I can observe it. I can like listen to it now. It's loud, it's there, but am I bothered by it? Is it affecting me at this moment? No. And I will still have my bad days, don't get me wrong, but I can then observe my thoughts a lot more. Like before, I'd have so many negative thoughts about my tinnitus, and I'd say to myself, oh, it's not going to go away this time. This spike is not going to go away. But whereas now I just think, well, it's going to run out of power soon. Like it will go back down like it always has before in my life. And, you know, like it's still there. It's not changed, but my mindset has.
Brilliant. Okay. We're going to move on to the questions. So, in fact, we've just had a really nice comment from Angela, actually, Caris. I'm just going to read out. This is
Oh,
lovely.
I can see.
So Caris, so Angela's bought your book 2 months ago, and she says she can't tell you how much she loves it, and it's given me the motivation to change things in my life. Angela, thank you very much for sharing that comment.
Thank
That's
you. That
really,
is honestly so nice to see.
yeah, it's lovely to see these comments. So I'm really glad you found it helpful. Okay, so first question. So first question is from Derek. Thank you for the question, Derek. If anyone else has any questions, by the way, we still don't have many. So do submit them. If you want to ask Caris a question about her journey or how she is now or something she did to help, pop them in the Q&A. Okay, so question from Derek. How do you become the observer of tinnitus? And I think, yeah, I know what you mean. So how would you become the observer of tinnitus, Caris?
So, like I just mentioned, I can still hear my tinnitus, but my mindset's changed. And although I can observe that it's loud, it's not making me feel as negative, half as negative as it did. Like I feel so content with it. And to get to this point, you need to go through a journey of ups and downs, but you can get to the point of habituation. And habituation basically is, this is a way I like to describe it. So, for example, if you have like, this is really random, if you have like a friend and they're kind of annoying at first, then you don't think they're ever going to be your friend because they're annoying, and then they become your best friend, and you know you can deal with their annoyance. They're talking a lot, you know. That's what tinnitus is like. It's like an annoying friend next to you all the time, but at the end of the day, they're not going to hurt you. They're just there. That's just their personality. And to become the observer, you have to understand that your tinnitus is not going to hurt you. It's there, it's chilling, it's doing its thing, and you've got to let go of all of the negativity and all the thoughts where it's like, is it ever going to go away? And for example, I used to wake up in the morning and think to myself, the first thought was, is my tinnitus gone yet? Is that ringing gone? I would sit there and think, is it gone yet? Is it gone? No, it's not gone. And once I stopped doing that every morning, it just set me up for the day and I didn't have to be as negative as I did. So
Mm-hmm.
it's getting into the habits, into the habits.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose it is a habit as well, isn't it? Oh, so we've got question here from Catherine. So thank you very much for sharing your journey, Caris. I find it incredibly reassuring. So Catherine has unilateral tinnitus, which travels around her head and other ear. It varies in volume and has multiple tones. Does this make it more difficult to habituate?
Honestly, I'm not sure. Mine's bilateral, so it's in both ears. But I would say that you can habituate no matter what. And even if it's like something, for example, if you've got like an Apple Watch that's like always buzzing, you'll eventually get used to it. So I don't see why not if you've got it in one ear. I guess it's the same concept. But I guess when you sleep, it's probably a little bit more difficult if you're lying on one side and your tinnitus is in the other. I would say at night, always listen to white noise. I always listen to white noise before I sleep. And anyone who has any kinds of tinnitus can do that. Um, but it's all about like finding like obviously the cause first, and if there is one, that is, and making sure there's no like underlying conditions, and then you can get that peace in mind, and then you can go on your path to habituation.
Thanks, Caris. And just to add as well, I'll preface this by saying this isn't medical advice. We can't offer medical advice over here. So if you do have any medical questions, please do see your doctor. But my kind of take on that would be it probably is slightly harder to, based on my experience helping people habituate, it probably is slightly harder to habituate if your tinnitus varies a lot and changes. But the process is the same and you can still habituate. If you have a brain, you can habituate to your tinnitus. It's always possible. It might just be it might take a bit harder, might take a bit longer, might be a little harder, but it will happen. Just had a message from Dave saying, annoying friend is a great description. Dave's had tinnitus for 20 years, and I think he would miss his friend if it went away. That's a really great.
I think I'd be scared if my friend went away.
Exactly. So question from Joanne. Are you aware if there's any food groups that trigger or agitate tinnitus? If so, is there anything we should avoid?
I guess tinnitus is different for everyone. So what may make your tinnitus worse might not make someone else's worse. So in my instance, caffeine can make mine worse, but I still get up in the morning and have some coffee, I feel like it's the simple pleasures that I never want my tinnitus to stop me from doing. So, coffee in the morning gets me up, get a bit louder. I'm kind of just like not too bothered at this point. I'm just like, yeah, it's going to happen, but it's not going to hurt me. It'll eventually go down. But I mean, I've heard from a few people that caffeine can actually cause their tinnitus to get a little bit louder, and it can be quite distressing for some people. And if that's something that like you want to try and avoid, maybe just experiment with that and see how it goes. And then what else? Salt can raise your blood pressure. I'm not an expert, but blood pressure apparently can do something to your tinnitus and make like the more pressure in your ears. So I would say if you just want to experiment, like log things down, if you've like had a spike in the day, log it down, like the time of the day when you've had it, and then you might find these patterns, you might find these patterns that are causing your tinnitus to spike, but everyone's different. So
Great advice. Thanks, Caris. Question from Giselle. Can you explain what habituation is for you personally? Because she's not sure what this means for the sound. I think you briefly touched on this already, but maybe just what does habituation mean for you, Caris?
yeah, so at the start when I heard about tinnitus, habituation with tinnitus, I honestly didn't really know what it meant, and I was always very confused. And it's fine to think like that because it is a big word and you don't hear it often. So habituation for me means that I don't have a negative response to my tinnitus anymore. So to get to that point of habituation, you need to practice, build these mental habits, and you can get to the point of having just a content response, not a positive one, but content. You're happy, you're living with it, you're fine. You no longer have this negative, distressing response.
Got it. Got it. Question from anonymous attendee. So, is there a stage with habituation that you no longer hear the sound? Or is it purely a mindset change to the noise? Do you notice it less? Are you less aware of it? Um, what's
Yeah.
going on there?
I'd say I'm a lot less aware of it because it's not something that's always playing on my mind. And it sounds silly because I'm always posting videos about it, but I just post it to help you guys now. Like, I used to post them because it would help me so much. And although it still does, like, it doesn't like affect me like that anymore. I don't need to think about my tinnitus. It doesn't really have a second input on what I'm thinking. So if my tinnitus is like really loud one day, yes, I might like listen to it, but it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it's the same with mine. I obviously it sounds like yours was a fair bit louder than mine, but I probably notice my tinnitus maybe 5, 6 times a week. And if I do notice it, I can go back to what I
Yeah,
was pretty quickly.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, question from Gary. So, Gary really likes the YouTube videos. Do you use earphones, Caris?
Yes, I do. So I use my headphones when I'm studying, when I'm just walking around campus, at the gym. Like you've got to monitor your sound levels, like just in case, like loud music might make your ears flare up. And it does for me as well. So whenever I like go to concerts and things like that, I have to wear earplugs. But if I'm like listening with my headphones on to music, I always try and monitor the sound. But obviously sometimes like you want to have your sound on like really high because like you get that immersive experience. But you've got to just at least you're thinking about it. If you're thinking about is it going to affect me, then you're on the right track. You've got the right mindset.
Mm, absolutely. Question for Marek. Do you find sugar has an adverse effect on tinnitus?
I'm not too sure. I would say see how it is for you again. Like if you're noticing that high sugary foods are making your tinnitus worse, then I would obviously lay off that. But I'd say write journals, write things down, see how it affects you, and then you can look back on it and see whether or not you should cut out of it or not.
Absolutely. So just kind of making a note of the things you're eating and seeing what an impact it has. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so Rob's question, so Rob's asked, in your previous webinar, you said that you used hearing aids temporarily to help you habituate, and then you stopped using them. Um, how was that experience? Because Rob's kind of asking because he has hearing aids, but he doesn't like the idea of becoming dependent on them. What was your experience of hearing aids like?
Yeah. So when I first got hearing aids, I thought they were going to basically cure my tinnitus. They didn't, but they really helped me. For example, when silent environments, it can be more stressful because your tinnitus is a lot louder. And these hearing aids basically amplify people around me. So my tinnitus wasn't getting in the way of conversations. And I still use my hearing aids now, but not as much as I did. But because the social aspect for me was really stressing me out and that I couldn't socialize because of my tinnitus, these hearing aids really helped. You don't have to be dependent on them. I mean, if you're in situations where your tinnitus is going to be a lot louder, for example, if you're having a fluctuation, then they're going to be helpful. It's just nice to have a little tool there that you can like reach for if you need it. And because I've got that, sometimes I don't reach for it because I think, oh, I've got this freedom now, like I can go for them if I want to, but half the time I don't really need them anymore.
Great. So you won't become dependent on the hearing aids. It's just kind of, they'll help if as and when you're using them.
Yeah.
Um, Richard's asking, is there any time of day when your tinnitus is worse? Is your tinnitus worse in the evening, during the day? When's your tinnitus worse, Caris?
I'd say my tinnitus is worse in the evening simply because I could have had a stressful or busy day and I've got more thoughts running through my head. And it used to be really bad before I went to sleep. And that's because I would have so much going on in my brain, like thinking like, oh, what am I going to do tomorrow? Like these are all the tasks that I need to do tomorrow. And it would just stress me out. And because my tinnitus reacts to stress, it just got louder and louder.
Mm.
And now what I do is I try and manage my stress better with breathing exercises that I've learned on Otto. And my and Anna from the Otto therapy, she told me to start doing like to-do lists and write things down in bed rather than thinking about them all the time. And that helped me so much. So now when it's the evening time, I can actually like declutter my mind a bit and then it will just like calm down a lot, like and can just calm.
I love that. I do that when I go to bed. I just kind of, my mind starts racing and I start thinking about things, and that doesn't help sleep, I don't think, does it?
No, not at all.
Question from Brianna. For those of us that for those of us who have, sorry, start again. For those of us who have very high pitched multi-tone frequency with reactive tinnitus and hyperacusis, what's the best habituation option? Because sound exposure or masking can't be used. So it sounds like Brianna's struggling with both sound sensitivity and tinnitus at the same time, and obviously masking is uncomfortable for that. What is that something you've got experience with, Caris?
I don't have hyperacusis myself, but I do have sensitive hearing. So I feel like those with tinnitus do get quite like overstimulated, like outside, like when you're in a busy environment. And when you've got tinnitus blaring and then you've got like sensitivity to sounds, it can be like really, really overwhelming and annoying. And it can probably take a little bit longer to habituate, but you can probably get there. And I don't have hyperacusis, and I know that it can be really bad for some people, that it can be painful. And I don't experience like intense pain or anything like that. But I would say speak to your doctor, speak to the experts, like speak to Otto, and you know, I think you'll be pointed in the right direction. And I don't see why you wouldn't be able to habituate. I think there'll be ways like tools to help you, like hearing protection and wearing. I had like these little things like for noise sensitivity called flares, like from Flare Audio, and they were really good. They were called calmers. They're brilliant. But I think you can get there. Just try and find what's working for you.
Thanks, Caris. So, Brianna, my take on that would be cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT for short, is proven to be the most effective way to manage tinnitus, but it's also effective with hyperacusis. And that's because the mechanism it works is the same. It's changing your brain's automatic reaction to both the tinnitus and the sounds that are giving you hyperacusis. So for those of you that don't know what hyperacusis is, by the way, hyperacusis is a medical word that we use to describe feeling of pain when you hear certain sounds. So a really uncomfortable sensation of pain to certain sounds. And it's really commonly associated with tinnitus. But Brianna, please do get in touch because we can help with that. Our specialists are trained in delivering CBT for tinnitus, but also CBT for hyperacusis at the same time. So that's something we can help with. So James is asking, do you go back up and down the stages 1 to 4? So, oh, are you
So
still with?
for
Sorry, you froze there for a second, Caris. Are you still with
oh
me?
yeah, I'm still here. All good.
Good. So did your tinnitus get worse, then get better? Did you kind of dehabituate, rehabituate again?
Yeah, so once I habituated, I was like, oh, I was so happy. Like I realized, okay, like it's obviously not a point where you just go through like, oh, I'm feeling really bad, and then all of a sudden, yes, I'm habituated. It was a big old journey, I was going up and down the scale numerous times, and I thought to myself, I can't be disheartened by this because I've got all the tools I need now. I've got it right. I'm going to get there. And obviously, that can be quite definitely go back down the scale despite all this. But that's when you need to use your CBT methods and think like as an observer of your thoughts. Like you need to think, look, like I will get there in the end. But when I got to this point of habituation, I did slip back down many times, but it was normally to the point where I was like thinking all these negative thoughts again. It was like, oh, I'm not going to be here forever. I'm not going to be at this point forever. And it's normal to think that. It's so normal. And obviously at that point, I just kept pushing through because I've got all the information I need. I don't need to be worried about my tinnitus. It's not going to hurt me. And then I got back to the habituation stage, and in the future I might drop back again. Like I will still have my bad days, and that's guaranteed. But it's about how you push yourself back forward to get to that point of habituation again.
Absolutely. And I suppose if you've done it once before, you can do it again. Makes it easier the
Yeah,
second time.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask 2 more questions, then we're going to do the prize draw. First question is from Alina. So Alina wakes up, first thing, thinks about the tinnitus. When you habituate, do the thoughts of you're thinking about your tinnitus all the time, do these thoughts go away? Or was it the reaction to your thoughts were different? Do you think about your tinnitus
Yeah.
less?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it. I think about it sometimes when it's bad, but I usually I mean, everyone's going to think about it. It's very natural to have these negative thoughts. But yeah, like you said, it's the reaction to these negative thoughts that you're having and how you respond to them. So if I say to myself, oh, this spike's happening again, like this is actually the worst one I've ever had this time, surely it's not going to go away. You've got to observe that thought and think, okay, I'm being pretty negative on myself here. And then you've got to remember, okay, like I think the statistics like 98% of people can actually habituate, like from what I read somewhere. Don't take my word on that. But like if you keep thinking all these positive thoughts and like push that negative thought back, like you can get there.
Yeah, so it's all about, if you have one of the negative thoughts, challenge yourself on that thought. What evidence is there to say that this thought's right? Could this be different? Could there be something else going on here? Okay, so final question, and this is kind of more of a general question from Intact. So for people that are struggling with tinnitus at the moment, what's the first step they should take to start habituating?
The first step you should take is to use everything, research about your tinnitus and you Google everything. I Googled everything. I found so many negative things, so many unreliable things that I should not have been reading, and it scared me. So, if you go to places like Tinnitus UK, Otto, Treble Health, but I found most of my information on Otto, and that's why, I'm here today. I'm a bit of an advocate. Yeah. And once you learn that it's not a threat and you know the science behind it, you can start pushing forward. And once your mindset changes that a little bit, you can start engaging in hobbies. And for me it was cooking. It really got myself back together. And when you get this mindset where you're like, okay, I'm feeling good, I can really look after myself here, and you start to maintain that, you do get to the point of, okay, I will habituate, and you'll trick your brain, you'll get your brain there.
Thanks, Caris. Okay, so if anyone is struggling with their tinnitus here, if anyone feels like they're stuck, if anyone doesn't know where to start, download the Otto app. We have a free 7-day course that will give you an introduction to tinnitus. We'll give you an introduction to what to focus on, how habituation works, what you need to do. And it's free. We won't charge you anything. Free 7-day course. It's a really good place to start with that. And talking of which, we are going to do the prize draw. So I'm going to go through and select the lucky person that's going to win unlimited access to the Otto app. So they'll be able to manage their tinnitus with Otto for as long as they need. Okay, I'm just going through. Tom, you have won. Congratulations. I'm going to send a message to you with my email address. You've just won over £300 worth of access to the Otto app. So please send me an email and I will organize that for you. I've sent you a message with my email address and you'll be able to claim that whenever you need. So we'll get that unlocked for you. Caris, thank you so much for your really inspiring story this evening. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned something. It's been really great to hear about some of the things you've used and how you've turned your tinnitus into a positive force in your life. Just as a reminder, how can people find out more about you? Where can people follow you? How can people read the book that you've written?
So my book is on all Amazon marketplaces. It's the Tinnitus Cookbook. You can find me also on Instagram, the Tinnitus Cookbook, or Caris Lount, YouTube, TikTok. But yeah, I've really, really enjoyed talking to you guys. And I know I ramble a lot, but I could honestly talk about tinnitus all day. And that's why I've got my social media.
No, there was no rambling there at all. I'm usually guilty of that. So everyone, please do go on social media and follow Caris. She provides lots and lots of really useful content. So, but otherwise, thank you, Caris. Thank you everyone for joining. We will be doing a webinar next week on sound sensitivity and hyperacusis. So if you're interested in learning more about that, if you have sound sensitivity or hyperacusis, please do come along next week. We'll see.